Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Sending love and blessings your way. This is Sean Michael for Monday Mind Shift. And today, our topic is positive self talk, rewriting your internal narrative. And I'm blessed to have Chris join me today to liven the discussion.
Happy to
So
be
let me
here this morning, Sean.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Chris. More than you will ever know. All right. So let me start with a question. If you spoke to other people the way you speak to yourself, would you still be friends? Most of us might not even realize it, but we talk to ourselves, and that has a direct impact on how we feel, what we believe, and even the actions we take. Let me ask, have you ever caught yourself saying things like, I'm not good enough? I always mess that up. I'm just not the kind of person who can do that. These thoughts aren't just in our head, they actually shape our confidence, our decisions, and ultimately our entire lives. So here's a question for everyone to ponder. Take a moment, think about this. What is the most common negative thing you say to yourself? If you feel like it, drop it in the chat. Um, Whatever you feel, or just think about it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be, if you're brave enough, go ahead and drop it in the chat. What's that negative thing you say to yourself? Now, there's actually science behind this. Science has shown, or psychologists, our brain is listening to what we tell it, and our subconscious believes it, like a small child believes in Santa Claus. Studies have shown that at least 80% of our thoughts are negative for most people. Those words we say to ourselves release chemicals in the brain. Self criticism triggers that ugly stress hormone, cortisol. But positive self talk actually releases dopamine and serotonin. Those are those feel good chemicals. But as I said, the biggest problem is our subconscious accepts repeated thoughts as the absolute truth, even if they're not. For example, if you tell yourself, sorry, forgot to put do not disturb on. Um, if you tell yourself, I always fail over and over, your brain will actually start to look for proof that that is true, and it will learn to ignore your success. But a simple shift in what we say here, if you say something like, I always figure things out, then our brain actually starts to look for evidence of that. So, question number 2 for today's presentation. Think about a time when you doubted yourself, but later realized you were capable. What changed in your thinking? So, how do we get all this negative voice, this negative self talk, that sometimes called the inner critic? It comes from our childhood messages. The person, whoever it might have been, oh, you'll never be good at that, or our failures, right? We think one little mistake, and instead of saying that failed, we turn it into I'm a failure. And in today's world with social media everywhere and everybody showing off their amazing life, or so it seems, we're sucked into this comparison culture. But there's good news. We can rewrite it. But how? How do we rewrite that internal narrative? The first starts with the beginning, where I said, think about the times where you spoke to yourself in a negative way. Awareness is the beginning. Pay attention to the words you use about yourself daily. Write them down. Get a notebook, get a journal, and just write 3 thoughts. Just 3 thoughts that you commonly have about yourself. I'd be willing to bet that 90% of the time, it's one of those 3 thoughts. Now, new question. Question number 3. How often do you catch yourself saying things to yourself that you wouldn't say to a friend? And step 2 to rewriting this internal narrative is to ask that very question. Would I say this to someone I love? Right? We might say, oh, I always mess that up. Or I used to tell myself, I'm such a klutz. Because, well, my mom reinforced that many, many times. But a simple reframe of saying, like, I learn from my mistakes and improve a little each time. This is key. This is so difficult, but so powerful. Eliminating absolutes. Those never, always, and can't. Always is a long time. When we say, I always 100%, can you say 100% that you always do that? So instead of another reframe we could do, if we instead of saying I'm not good at this, simple saying I'm still learning and I'm improving every day. I've been tutoring English for 7 years, and my students always say when they make a mistake, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, my English is bad." And I tell them all the time, like, "Stop saying that. Don't say that. Say, thank you for your patience. I'm still learning." Another question. What's a negative thought you've caught yourself saying lately? If you're willing to share it in the comments, we can actually do a reframe live, and maybe Chris will be able to share some of those. Step 3 is replacing that negative self-talk habit with a positive self-talk habit. We can use daily affirmations, things like I'm capable, I'm worthy. But there's a key here. You have to say it, you wanna write it, that's even more it adds another level, and believe it. Now, at first, it's not gonna be might not be very believable, but just think about it in a hopeful manner, like or write your affirmations, "I'm getting better at this," or "I'm learning to." It's a simple reframe. And practice gratitude. You can use a gratitude journal, there are dedicated ones you can find, or just write down your top 3 things you're grateful for each morning. By practicing this, we're shifting from looking at our life for what's wrong to looking at what's right, what we already have, what's good in our life today. And surround yourself with positive voices. I once heard, I think it was, I don't remember if it was Jim Rohn or Brian Tracy, one of those all-time greats, said, "We are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with." And it's so true. If we're hanging out with our friends and they're always negative, we're gonna be negative. And then step 4, or part 4 of step 3, to embed that positive self-talk habit is catch and replace. Pay attention, notice when you say that negative statement, and reframe it. I'd love to have people put in the chat or in the comments, what which of these techniques do you think might work best for you and why? All of this to say our self-talk creates our reality. But the good news is you're the author of your story. You can rewrite each chapter every day. Here's my challenge for you. For the next 7 days, commit to catching and replacing one negative thought a day. Love to see. Drop an emoji in the chat if you're in on this challenge. 7 days, catch those negatives, reset them, replace them with a positive, empowering one. My final thought: you deserve to speak to yourself with the same kindness, the same encouragement that you give to others. Drop in the chat, in the comments, your biggest takeaway today. And if you want to go deeper, I will post the link to join us on stage. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
It's my
Tell
pleasure
me
to be here
more,
with you this morning.
tell me more about this mind shift 16 years ago.
So the one I accidentally put in the public chat, I meant to say 16 months ago. Yeah, so 16 months ago, I had a massive mind shift, where I had looked at the world and, as you alluded to, all these negative thoughts, self-doubt crept in. You know, how many people, you get passed up for certain job opportunities or different things happen to you in life. And even though it's no fault of your own, you can't help but think, being yourself, that, you think all eyes are on you. So it's like, it must have been my failures. It must have been this. It must have been that. And then once you kind of realize that and you just, you know, the whole world, you got to realize that it's just the whole world's not about you. It's you juxtapose your 3 pound universe, your brain, versus the massive universe that's out there that exists. You shift your mindset and you realize that, everything bad that happens is only bad because you perceive it as bad. If you actually perceive it as an opportunity or something else, then all of a sudden negativity starts to go away really, really fast. Um, and you just start to look at everything as every challenge or every change as an opportunity. And that's just the way I started to look at things. And my life dramatically changed. I went from confused, bitter and angry all the time to excited, happy, thrilled, and just excited for the prospect of what life would bring every day. So just, yeah, total mindset shift.
Yeah, it's powerful, and but it only takes, as you shared, right, a little. Like, it doesn't have to be this massive. Like, it doesn't just go away, right?
Mm-mm.
You make a little shift and you see a little change, and you make another shift, and as I alluded to, it's about a habit, right? If we have a habit of negative self-talk, we just have to replace the habit. I learned a long time ago with habits, if we have a habit we're trying to eliminate, you can't just eliminate it, because you leave a hole. And by leaving that hole, if you don't fill it, often that bad habit will come back and re-inhabit it, and it'll be stronger that time. So, it takes daily practice, daily habit of catching ourselves with the negative self-talk, reframing it. I actually have a reminder on my wall with, a list of words that I focus on not saying. And the ones I mentioned: always, never, sorry unnecessarily, because a lot of us have that habit of saying sorry when, is it really appropriate? Does it really fit here? And but is another one, because I heard it once that when we say but, it negates everything that came before it. So, Chris, what is your daily practice? I mentioned some of the habits that we can practice daily, like gratitude or the catch and replace. How do you keep your mindset on a more positive path?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting you bring it up. So I have a lot of very difficult things I'm balancing in my life right now, and I still wake up with a positive mindset every day. So just to give you a little sneak behind the curtain, I work a full-time day job. I'm only off today for President's Day, and at night I run an NGO. So I am working 16-hour days. My father is ill. He's in the hospital. He's going in for some serious treatments. Um, One of my dogs is about to pass away. So, like, and believe it or not, like all this is going on, and I can still wake up in a very positive mindset every day. So what's my routine for that? As you said, wake up with reminders. I wake up, I have a written thing that I keep next to me every day of, all the good stuff I have going on in my life, all the amazing stuff I have that's going on in my life. So I don't just think about the negative things. And then, I make sure to keep little reminders everywhere, like the background of my cell phone. I will change all the time to something that just reminds me of either a goal or something I want to something I want to build, some sort of goal I have. And I keep my mind occupied with creativity a lot. So whether or not it's writing, journaling, or going out and exploring in nature and talking to my AI. Whatever I have to do, I do it. I deal with the negative when it comes, and I don't avoid it. That's the other thing. I make sure to embrace all emotions when the negatives come. I fully I fully accept the situation. I don't try to hide from it. I just go, this is what it's going to be. It's not going to be pleasant. I'm going to experience unpleasant emotions. I'm not going to bury them. I'm going to experience them, and then I'm going to go experience the happy emotions after. And that's it. It's just been a mindset shift of that. And just like you said, the reminders are huge, though. If you don't do the reminders, it's really hard to stay positive.
Yeah, you've got to, and you got to keep those, like you said, put them where you're going to see them on the side of your bed, on your bathroom mirror, on your phone background, something where you're going to see them often. And you made a great point, Chris. Having a positive mindset isn't about putting on the rose colored glasses and say everything's great. My life is good. Like you said, you're working long hours. You have negative events. We all do. I just put one of my dogs, 17-year-old dog, we put her down because she was not eating, she was not drinking, she had problems, and the vet's like, "Oh, well, we can treat her." I'm like, "She's 17 years old. She has no teeth. It's time." And then I have my other dog who's actually the day after we put the first one down, she's moping around, she's not eating, and it's like, "Oh, come on." Bounce back, please. Although she's just as old, so I know that you know her her time is drawing to a close. These are the realities of life. Our family members. My mother-in-law is struggling with dementia, and so yeah, life is going to bring challenges, and it's not. I always say denial is not just a river in Egypt. We don't try to deny the challenges, the negative things, like you said. We embrace them and feel them. We feel the pain, we feel the grief. We can't
Yeah,
ignore it.
I almost, the way I have come to look at it is, it used to be something that I was taught from a young age that, you know, um, grief wasn't something you expressed as a man or, all these challenges or whatever. And, the way I've reframed it is, um, I look at it and I go, these are the moments where you're forged as a man, right? Like that's the way I look at it. It's how you respond to moments like that, the difficulties, who you're there for, who you support, how you handle it. Um, that's the measure of a man in almost every way to me. Um, not when times are good, when times are bad. How do you respond? And too often we look to people who don't respond the right way in good times. But long and the short of it is, I would just say, yeah, I think these moments, you're talking about like your dog and my dog and all that. These are the moments where you have to embrace the realities of life, understand the cycle of life, but still know how to bring a smile to other people's faces. And then, find time to grieve in your own period, with your loved ones.
Right. And find a way to put a smile on our own face.
Yes.
Um, because, like with the loss of my dog, is yeah, I'm sad that she's gone, but then I remember all the joy that she brought. You know, we traveled to from California to New Mexico to Belize. We traveled through Mexico and the last 10 years in Guatemala. I mean, she's an international traveler and she's touched so many lives, and there's so many things to be grateful for. But
There
yeah,
really
and
There really are, though. That's the thing, and it's so difficult to take measure of all the things. Like, and it's ridiculous because we can when things are bad or they seem bad, we get tunnel vision.
Mhm.
That's the problem. We get tunnel vision, and we
So
can
true.
only see the world through the lens of the negative thing that we haven't gotten past yet. And then when the event happens, a lot of people, because they've been so focused on that lens, it feels like their world has ended. And you have to really keep your eyes open and look around and keep your head on a swivel, and realize that the world is spinning. It's a beautiful place. Every moment, each and every moment is an opportunity for you, yourself, your own personal universe to start over. Every nanosecond is another opportunity to start over and be a better person and to embrace the positive. So they just go for it.
Yeah, and as you said, but give yourself the space to process these as
Hmm.
well. Um, you know, the challenges, the loved ones that are struggling, the losses. It's about we give ourselves the space to feel it, to process it, stay focused on the good, the positive. And the reality is we're all struggling. Amalia shared in the private chat that, she's got a lot of challenges as well, working full time. I think a lot of us are working full time, doing other things, trying to build our own business, dealing with life, loved ones that are struggling, older loved ones, pets, all of it. This isn't about ignoring the reality. It's about finding the silver lining in the cloud, right? um, about not letting it hold us down, right? And live in that negative space ourselves. You brought up something else too, Chris. You talked about like real men don't. That is so prolific, like big boy. I just heard this in the Monday afternoons. I lead a book study on nonviolent communication, and we were just talking about that, about the message we heard, big boys don't show feelings, or big girls don't cry. And I don't think people are mean to proliferate this saying, but it's just kind of, again, habits, right? They heard it, so they pass it on, right? My mother-in-law is always telling my wife, "Oh, you need to do this with your son, and you need to," and my wife's like, "Thank you, mom. We're raising our son our way. Things are different now. We have better understanding. Um, so yes, we're doing things differently." But that's what life is about, is adapting where we need to, right? Try to work on maintaining that positive, empowering side in spite of difficulties.
Yeah, and I
So,
think a lot of that will come from support from one another, in
absolutely.
whether it's community, family, a loved one, a conversation like this on LinkedIn, wherever it is, you go for, to find those connections. Connections are what people really crave, and connections are what eliminate the negativity. And
Right.
that's
Real
that's
connections,
real
not just
connection.
a
Yeah,
comment on a post.
yeah, exactly. Real human connections.
Right. Which is, it's like these chats, Chris, I'll be honest, they're my lifeline because I live in a foreign country and the culture's very different and there's a bit of a language barrier. So having live conversations on these events, and knowing that my connections like you and Amalia and others are not just my friends in the computer. Right, that I know that I can reach out and support each other and be there for each other when we need it.
Yeah, 100%. And that speaks volume to the power of community. And Amaya has done an amazing job with the beginnings of an amazing community there that she's building. I see communities springing up all over the place, to be 100% honest with you. And I'm glad to see it happening. I'm glad to see people connecting again, post COVID, and just finding common ground and different ways to be happy again. It is really, really, really a struggle to be happy right now in so many ways. Um, but people are resilient. And if there's one thing that we've seen throughout history over and over and over again, people will not be held down and people will find a way to be happy again.
Yes, very, very true. And I'm, as you shared that, Amalia building this new community that I'm honored to be a part of. Um, I'm also building my own community. And as you said, I've seen communities popping up everywhere around different topics. I've seen communities for, I actually saw one. It was a community for those people who wake up in the middle of the night and they want to be able to reach out and communicate with somebody. So I think there's a community for whatever kind of connection you want to make with people. I've started a community called the Real Mastery Hub, and it's about this very thing about, you know, doing the inner work so that our outer world is more of what we desire, right? We can reach our next level of potential in our life. In life, as I always say, life, business, and relationships. The three main spheres that every one of us has. We have our job, we have our family and friends, and we have our life, our personal life. And I think there's a need to find places to connect and to unlock some of the inner obstacles, we'll say. Help set the prisoners free.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how many different communities are springing up. I'm really glad I want to explore yours now that I know about it. First time I'm hearing, so I'm definitely going to come check it out.
Well,
But
it's brand new.
yeah,
It's even newer than Amalia's. So.
yeah, well, I mean, this is why we do the shows. Now I know about it. Now I'll be there. Now we'll come. Now we'll see who we can connect with there. I like to be a super connector, but um, to pick up on the thought a little bit further, kind of just what I see is throwing a little bit of my futurist take on it. Like what I see happening with technology in these communities is it's just human nature playing out, right? Like there are like-minded people finding ways to get together and communicate and work together and collaborate in real time on real projects and build stuff they want to do. And that is really, really interesting just to see these small, what they call super minds, because anytime you get an organization of, multiple people together who think differently but have common goals, they tend to solve problems quicker. So you get all these online communities start forming that all are working to solve the same problems. I'm curious to see how that's going to play out over time. From a positivity standpoint, I think from a productivity standpoint, it's going to be phenomenal. But I think in the long run, that's actually going to lead to positivity as well. I think more people will connect, more communities will form, more people will be, not as hesitant to join these online communities
Right.
as friends and as people spread it with word of mouth, grassroots stuff, and invitations through LinkedIn. Hey, I was in this room last night with my friend. It was really, really cool. I'm not watching TV tomorrow night because I'm going back to that room. I'm tired of watching TV because all it shows me is negative stuff. Let me go to where people are being positive and talking about how can we have a real impact. And I see kind of this evolution happening through socials and restreams and everything that we're doing, where small little groups of people are going to work together to tackle giant problems.
Well, and I think of the tiniest pebble dropped in the pond causes a ripple that touches, can ripple for long distances. And I'm looking at, you said the power of technology in connecting us. Um, I know you and maybe others are in the United States. I saw a comment, somebody, uh, Azahar Ali, welcome. Merhaba or marhaba, welcome from Saudi Arabia, he says. So, yeah, the technology allows us to connect with people we might not otherwise have interacted with on a global scale. I know my podcast, most of my audience is in Asia, not in the West. So, and my book study group that we're doing on NBC, we've got member a member a member from Turkey and a member from Brazil and a member from the UK. So if we utilize technology in a powerful way, we can spread the, the positivity, right? I feel the same way. My wife likes to chill out and watch Netflix before bed, and I'm like, well, I'd rather be in my community and interacting because TV is can be so negative and
Well,
just drains me.
a lot of people don't understand that television it's programming. Like they call it programming for a reason. It's
Exactly.
to shape the way you think, to shape the way you experience the world, to shape the way you perceive everything, to sell you a narrative so that you buy certain goods. It's a part of the corporate machine. I like that these things are springing up. I care, I like very well written television or true cinema. I enjoy,
Hmm.
but television in and of itself is mostly a garbage product, in my opinion. So I would so much rather be up here on stages or in audiences listening to other minds, real minds, not people that are paid by billionaires who are millionaires themselves, getting paid by
Right.
billionaires, telling us what to
Following a
think.
script.
Yes, following a script, telling us exactly what to think and believe. I would rather talk to other intelligent individuals who are in finance and economics or sociology and medicine and be like, okay, hey, experts, like, what do you really think about what's going on? And learn from actual experts, not the television or YouTube where somebody puts on a tinfoil hat and goes through crazy stuff. Like I want to learn from actual people who are genuinely interesting. And so I don't know. I much prefer this to TV, but at the same time, to each their own, right? I also recognize that to everybody else out there who is seething listening to what I'm saying, that I fully embrace that people are different, and I appreciate that there are people who just want to relax and enjoy the television.
And I
And
respect it.
yeah, and I respect it 100%. It's just I'm wired different and I can't turn my brain off, and I'd rather do stuff that's productive.
Yes, and I would 100% agree. And, speaking of amazing people and connectors, I see Kenny has joined us, Mr. Kenneth Dunner, who says he can't join us. I notice he's been joining more of these discussions. I love him to death. He bombards me with invites to these great discussions, and many times I get to join, and other times I'm like, oh, I wish I could join, but I can't, because I'm doing other things. But yeah,
So
this community, this connection is so powerful, and it's it aligns with what I shared earlier, about if we're trying to rewrite our inner narrative, we want to spend time with those positive people, and it don't always have to like 100% align with our views. I'm okay with being challenged on my views.
as am I. I think that's the point of having views, is so that like you can discuss them with other people,
Right,
find out
in an
what
adult way.
yeah, find out why they think differently, get to the root issue of what shaped their opinion, then have a discussion as to what you still how your perceptions differ, figure out what the root of that problem is, and then you got to figure out, okay, so now that we disagreeing on principle or are we disagreeing on fact? And the whole problem that we've really gotten to in this world is that everybody's so ready to fight that they're not even getting to is it fact or not anymore. And so we
Absolutely.
how can we possibly get to is it a difference of principle?
Right, because we're everybody, like as you said, they're dying. It's almost like they're going looking for a fight sometimes.
Everybody's looking for a fight because it's the internet and they're angry and they know if they type 6 words, they can get 30 notifications, and those 30 notifications, what they don't realize, that's a dopamine hit. You were talking earlier,
Right.
about the
But it's a
chemical. Yeah,
disempowering dopamine hit.
exactly. It's like heroin. It's the worst. It's the worst thing you can get addicted to is social media.
Yes. And it's not it's not an easy addiction to kick for a lot of people. I know several years ago, I caught myself like every time the stupid phone went ding, I was picking it up and I'm like, what am I doing? This is crazy. Like I'm letting this little device control me. So I actually turned off the notifications from social media. I'm like, if I want to go check out and see what Chris is up to or Kenneth's up to or anybody else is up to, I want to control it. I don't want the notifications popping up and me acting like Pavlov's dog, where I'm just responding to a stimulus, getting that dopamine hit because I got another like or something. I'd rather generate my own dopamine and serotonin in a healthy way using some of the techniques that I mentioned.
Yeah, focus on your techniques, and when you're with somebody, I have a cell phone next to me right now, but what I will do, I'm using it to comment on the show. I turn it
Mhm.
over when nobody's commenting, and I make sure to do that exact same thing as much as I can when I'm in the presence of human beings. I do not take my cell phone out. I keep it in my pocket. I don't look
Absolutely.
at it. if something goes off, if a text message goes off, if a phone call goes off, and I'm in a conversation, there's a reason you have voicemail. There's a reason it's a text message.
Right.
It could wait.
It's not so dire that I have to. Yeah. You make an excellent point, because even like by putting the device in our pocket and let it buzz in our pocket or whatever, where we can just ignore it and continue the conversation, stay focused, stay present. Um, even just, I'm going to turn my video on. Even just talking to somebody with it in my hand, even if I've got it like this, where I'm not looking at the screen, it's taking away from the connection and the conversation. So I practice the same thing when I'm in conversation, especially face to face. The phone's out of the, it's put away. It's not present. I know what you mean with here, because unfortunately with Restream, we can see the comments coming in from LinkedIn, but we cannot comment back out. So if we want to comment, we need to comment through another device, right? I'm kind of
Correct.
bummed
Yes.
about that. I wish that we could do that, because I know comments to YouTube or other platforms can go two-way, but LinkedIn's system doesn't allow us that. So we adapt.
We are, if one thing, adaptive people. But that's, part of positivity. That's actually a great segue into how adaptation is so important to positivity, right? Your ability to adapt to new situations, to change, that is a skill that everybody who wants to remain positive should really work on. Um, Understand that just because the situation's changed or something, basically what your emotions signal to you when you feel uncomfortable, it's just your body recognizing that, hey, this scenario's changed. You should reevaluate what's around you. It's not something
Right.
to be afraid of. It's just your body kicking in saying, okay, this is a survival mechanism. The reason you're experiencing this is because you're supposed to reassess what's around you. That's all.
Right. It's these feelings, and well, I want to go, you said someone trying to stay positive. I would say if someone is at a point in their life and they're like, things are not like something, maybe they're just having that small feeling that things are not where I want them to be. They're off a little bit. Like, this isn't what I imagined my life would be at this point in time. These are, the emotions, the feelings, those little inklings. And welcome, Tracy. I see Tracy popped in. Um, I like to think of it, they're like the lights and the gauges in our car, right? They are there to tell us what's happening. And if there is something, if the light pops on, we know it's time to go get the car checked out. It's the same thing with our emotions, or that different feelings that, like, something's off, right? Pain, sadness, depression. These are not something to be afraid of, but rather something to tell us to reevaluate, to get things checked out, which with our own self is more of that inner, questioning and an inner awareness.
Yeah, and I think, just to speak from personal experience, I was able to tell many years ago when my mindset had started to begin to shift towards the negative. You could palpably feel it,
Hmm.
and for a while you just call it a funk or a bad couple of days or stress, or you start blaming it on your schedule or whatever else. Like, um, the point being is you feel it coming on. So if there's anybody out there listening and like you need that wake up call to be like, hey, I'm just speaking from experience. Like, now is the time, anybody who listens to this in the future, to go out and just talk to somebody and be like, hey, I've
Yes,
been like
definitely.
I've been way more bummed out because trust me, it gets harder and harder and harder to speak up. And then you start acting differently, whether you realize it or not. And then people distance themselves from you, and that's how you become isolated. I became isolated for a while. And it's not an easy place to come back from. It's not. So I would just say for anybody out there who is beginning to feel those feelings, go talk to somebody today and have a great day today.
Right. Yes, absolutely. It's important to have that person that, I call it accountability. I had a deep partnership with a friend who, I remember we were having a discussion about commanding respect versus demanding respect. And we had an agreement that we would call each other out on what we saw. We would be honest and open with each other. And he's like, "Well, it sounds kind of like you're demanding respect." I went, "Okay, I know I asked for that, but I wasn't ready for it." But it was powerful. And seems I have lost Chris. Oh, he's back.
Yeah, that was weird. I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I'm here. I hear you
Uh,
now. That was weird. Like suddenly you were just,
yeah, I guess it's one of those things. I don't know if you've heard about it. We call it falling off stage, where the for some reason your internet will just glitch out.
yeah. Well, I've been in the audience of LinkedIn Lives, or last year the audio events, and like just get dropped.
It happens. I didn't touch a button. I
Yeah.
could still hear you talk.
Technology.
Yep.
It's powerful. It connects us in ways that weren't possible many years ago, but it's they have internet drops and servers go down and things happen. um just like life, things happen, and we can either get back up on stage. you know I love a saying in Japanese, nana korobi ya oki, which translates to be fall 7 times, get back up 8. And it's kind of a mantra for me these days to keep going. I was having a discussion with my wife just the other day, and I was sharing my feelings, and she kind of misread them. She's like, "I'm not letting you give up." I'm like, "Give up? No, oh no, 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 no. I'm not talking about that." I'm like, I'm just looking to, I gotta pivot a little bit. I'm not giving up for any way. Um, I'm on a journey, and I'm in it every day to rise up, even if it's, 1%. I actually was I'm reading a excellent book by Brian Johnson called Arate. And the one I was reading last night, he was sharing two really, really powerful things. Let's see, was it? So he mentions a book by Stephen Kotler called The Rise of Superman. And in that book, he talks about, the people we all look up to, these like Tony Hawks and these extreme athletes that do amazing things, snowboarders, etc. But Steven says it's about it's not about us like taking giant leaps. It's about pushing just a little outside the comfort zone to make the impossible possible. And he says it's just a 4% stretch. But if we do 4% and then 4% and then 4% and then 4%. I know you're in finance, right, Chris?
No, medtech and AI.
Med tech. Okay, my bad. Because you've mentioned a couple times finance, but if anybody knows about the power of compounding, it applies not just in money, whether it's debt or investment, but even in our own growth and our improvement. Little improvements. Get 4% more positive self talk today, and then tomorrow another 4%, and eventually this compounds into this massive change, which is what you explained in your story, Chris. I believe is that you made a small shift, and you made this continual small shift, small shifts, small shifts, small shifts.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up the percentages. Somebody early on had said, if you improve yourself 1% every day for a year, that's 365% improvement over a year. And I was like, okay, well, that's pretty good. What about if I did 3%? And that was my goal for 2024 was to shoot for 3% better every day. I didn't have any, I had certain metrics that I was trying to peg it to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say I exceeded. And boy, was 2024 a transformative year just from a goal setting and transformation standpoint, with that in mind. Yeah.
Well, and simple math tells us 1% over a year is 365. But the best way I've heard to explain this is a rich father was on his deathbed, and he brought his two sons before him, and he's like he wanted to pass on some some of his wealth, and he gave them two options. He said, you have the option of take 1 cent that will double every day for 30 days, or take $1 million right now, and you can do whatever you want with it. Well, the one brother said, okay, I'll take the penny doubled every day. The other brother took the $1 million and hired the best advisors and started investing it. And he felt bad for the brother because, halfway through, the brother's got a few $100s. He's like, hey, I can loan you some money so you can. He's like, no, 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 I got this. Do you have any idea what the number was at the end of 30 days? Have you heard this one before, Chris?
I've heard it before. I don't remember the exact number, but it's ridiculously,
It's like
it's
5
large.
million
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that 1% shift in ourselves each day over 365 days is much more than 365. That was my point. And I see we're nearing the top of the hour and got quite the audience. I thank you for sharing this on your feed, Chris, and I thank Amalia for. I know she's not on stage, but I know she was also sharing this out among the Audio Leadership Club page. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's nice to have a crowd because I've been kind of in an echo chamber the last few weeks. Chris, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts about positivity. Yeah. It's in difficult times, finding positivity is definitely about reminding yourself by writing it down or whatever way works for you. I have bedside reminders, cell phone reminders. Um, and I have a couple little things, just automated alarms that will go off. And and I just have certain songs that I play that always bring me back to a positive place, and certain pictures that I make sure to keep around my living space, that just always bring me joy. So, when things are negative, or when times seem tough, it's easy to get focused on the negative, but always remind yourself how much there is to be grateful for, um, how much you still have, how much great potential you still have, and how every moment you can really turn it around and live a better life. And that's my takeaway is just stay positive, focus on all the amazing things Sean has taught. This has been a great conversation. I'm so happy I joined, and I'm so glad everybody in the audience joined. So thanks for coming, everybody in the audience. This has been a great discussion.
Yes, and thank you for contributing to the discussion and sharing your own experience, Chris. My closing is I've adopted a new mantra. So it's been a while now. No pressure, no diamonds. Life is going to bring challenges, it's going to bring difficulties, and that's part of life. We can use it to make us better, or we can use it to make us bitter. As Chris alluded, that keeping the reminders, practicing gratitude, the affirmations, surrounding ourselves with people who will lift us up is so powerful, and it's what can keep us grounded in the darkest storms. We can't ignore the storms, we can't deny the pain. And one of my mentors says, pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice. So I leave you with that, and remember, ask yourself, would you talk to someone you love the way you talk to yourself? And we talked about the community earlier. I will share that in the comments on the original post. So if you want to join, we do a book study on Mondays, but the community is in its infancy, called the Real Mastery Hub. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Monday, however much of it is left, and have a great week.
Have a great week, everyone.